Self-righteous Karens have never been as vicious. This is Intolerance.
So listen,
Yeah.
if you didn't get chickenpox as a kid because you had the vaccine,
Yes?
okay, you can still get shingles. I'm here to tell you, you can still get shingles. So what you should do,
Very scary.
there's a shingles vaccine,
Oh, yeah.
but they don't start offering it to you until you're like 40, which doesn't make, I'm 33 and I just got it. So, hey, I would next time you like go in for a physical or something and they're giving you like those shots, I would just ask for it.
Do it.
Yeah, because it sucked and you don't want to go through it.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Seen and Heard. This is the podcast where Jackie and I talk about the Sight and Sound top 100 greatest films of all time list, which is, this is the only list that matters. This is the definitive list. We're not talking about the AFI list here. You're not just getting American movies. This is Sight and Sound. This is the British publication. This is movies from all over the world.
What have you been watching?
Like no movies from the Oscar nominees. Yeah, this last week I kind of went to town. I watched so many movies, and none of them were Oscar nominees. I really dropped the ball.
Have you not seen Power of the Dog?
No, not yet. That's
What?
so my whole thing, and I know that it's supposed to be one of the lesser ones, but I want to see Nightmare Alley because GDT is my boy. But I was like, I need to watch the old one first from the 40s. Like I couldn't go into the new one without seeing that one. So I did watch that, and it was great. It was really great. Like those 40s noirs. I'm actually like a big noir kick right now because you can't even really replicate that. Like it was very much of its time. There's just a certain feel to those movies. And Nightmare Alley is this very like juicy, kind of mean movie. Like it just kind of has all the ingredients. I really liked it. And it's funny because it's like an hour and 45 minutes or something. And I'm like, I looked at the Guillermo one and it was like 2.5 hours. I'm like, how did they stretch this out to 2.5 hours? But that and Power of the Dog are like hopefully within the next week I will have seen those. I also saw West Side Story.
Oh, how'd you like
the
it?
Spielberg one. I liked it. Here's the thing. I think, and I know you feel the same way, I think the Robert Wise one from 1961, 62, I feel bad for not remembering
61.
The exact year. I think 61 sounds right. I think that's one of the all-time great movie musicals.
It is.
And honestly, just one of the great films.
Yeah.
And so when the Spielberg one was announced, I was like, why?
Me too.
So I saw the Spielberg one and I thought it was good. I'm so conflicted about it. It's really well done. And the way that Spielberg shoots it, like he was born to make a musical. And I can't believe that this is the first one. He knows exactly what to do and exactly how to tell the story. But I couldn't shake the feeling while I was watching it. Like at the end of the day, he's doing a great job. In fact, I think it's his best movie in years. But I was like, why does this exist? Because at the end of the day, the only thing that Spielberg brings to it that wasn't already there is cultural representation, which is sorely lacking from the Robert Wise version, in which Natalie Wood plays a Puerto Rican. So I appreciate that about Spielberg's version. It's more inclusive. It's really well made, but we have the old one and it's still great.
Yeah.
There's nothing about it that's dated or besides that,
Yeah.
which I just mentioned. But at the end of the day, I couldn't shake the fact of like, I wish that Spielberg had adapted a different musical just because
something we don't have.
Something we don't already have. Because if he had brought that same craftsmanship to like a musical that hadn't been a movie yet, or maybe like they kind of like flubbed the movie, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
But instead, because Spielberg does such a good job with it, that it should be the definitive version of this movie, but it's not.
Yeah.
And the fact that 60 years later, we got this version, and I don't know. I also didn't love Ansel, although I didn't think he was bad necessarily. I thought he was fine.
He's very blah. He's very clearly a weak link, I think. I mean, everyone else is so good.
Yeah, everyone else is much better than him.
Really good.
Who's the woman that plays Maria?
Her name is Rachel Zegler.
She's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is her first movie. She was discovered out of high school.
Very quickly, I'll just mention too, I saw a movie called Communion, which stars Christopher Walken. It's kind of this, I guess, relatively obscure alien visitation film where Christopher Walken plays an author, and the author wrote the script for the movie, and this apparently happened to him in real life, where he's visiting his upstate New York cabin, and he's abducted by aliens and returned. And I was kind of sold on this movie because people kind of talk about it in like hushed tones of like, oh, it's so wild, and Christopher Walken's off the rails in it, and there's like this anal probe scene. I was like, okay, well, I got to see this movie. It didn't go far enough, and I actually didn't think it was very interesting. And it's a very cheesy, like he is unhinged in the movie and just acting very bizarre the whole time, and like that's great to see. But it wasn't bizarre enough for me. I guess in my head I was like, this is gonna be this like fucked up, crazy.
It sounds silly.
It is silly, but I was sold like that it's silly and horrifying. Yeah. Where it wasn't scary at all. It was just silly and kind of a mess. So there's Communion. You don't need to see it. What about you? What have you been watching?
I went and saw All About Eve at the New Bev this past weekend. Well, I guess by the time you guys hear this, 2 weekends from now. One of the rowdiest screenings I've ever been to, and I don't know why I expected anything less. It was so fun, like truly. It's because every single line of that movie is gold.
It is. It's such a quotable movie, yeah.
Every single line is a quick jab. And everyone was laughing, and everyone was cheering, and everyone was booing. Like, it was just so fun, truly. One of my favorite movies.
Who wrote that? Was it Ernest Lemon?
It's Mankiewicz.
Oh, it's Mankiewicz. Yeah. Right.
Joseph Mankiewicz.
Right.
So that was really fun. And then I saw La Cienega for the first time.
Oh, the Lucretia Martel movie?
Lucretia Martel. Mm-hmm.
What'd you think?
God, it like the only word I can think of to describe that movie is just fascinating. Like, it's just such an interesting, I can't stop thinking about it because it leaves you scratching your head, but nothing is too out of reach. Like, it's like all the mysteries, they're not that mysterious to the point where you can imagine all the things that aren't unsaid and all the things that are unseen. Mm-hmm. But it's like, what a fascinating concept to like tease so much and then just not give it to us. But it's like, you don't really need to because we all have imaginations.
Well, the good ones do.
Like the unspoken implications of everything that you see in that movie, but you don't see it. And then it's very sensual. It's very like so much touch and these close-ups, and you can feel that movie. Oh my God. Yeah. I really liked it, and I'm excited to see more.
I think that's the only one I've seen too, but I hear that The Headless Woman is great. And she had one from a couple years ago called Zama or something.
Yes.
That I think is also supposed to be great, but I haven't seen them.
I know, there's so much to watch. Let's get into Intolerance.
Let's do it.
Intolerance, sometimes subtitled Love's Struggle Throughout the Ages, is a silent epic released in 1916, directed by D.W. Griffith. Titles written by Hetty Gray Baker. It is a self-titled play comprised of 4 stories, each telling a tale of human prejudice and intolerance, and the characters' attempts to overcome them. We have a modern American story, modern being 1916, of a woman, the dear one, whose baby is taken away from her by high society reformists, and whose husband is wrongly accused of murder. There's the story of the fall of Babylon, centered around a mountain girl who's devoted to her king, and how a jealous priest sold out the city to the Persians. There's also the story of the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre, which took place in the 14th century in France, in which a Protestant woman, Brown Eyes, is killed by a lustful Catholic soldier. And finally, there are segments taking place in Jesus' Jerusalem, leading up to his crucifixion. The film is structured around this image of a woman, the Eternal Mother, rocking a cradle, the cradle of society, if you will. I don't know. She's played by Lillian Gish. Mae Marsh plays the dear one. Her husband, the boy, is played by Robert Harron, and the mountain girl of Babylon is played by Constance Talmadge. Griffith made the film as a response to the outcries following Birth of a Nation, his 1915 Civil War epic. The film was controversial for its racist depictions of Black Americans and the halcyon sentiments towards antebellum America. He also wrote a pamphlet called Rise and Fall of Free Speech in America. Have you heard of this?
Mm-hmm.
Because of how upset people were by Birth of a Nation and how...
It glorifies the KKK.
Yeah, and how the NAACP... And how the NAACP tried to block it from being played in theaters.
They would go to screenings and try to shut it down.
Yeah, and then he had the nerve to write this pamphlet. And
on free speech, yeah.
Yeah, and in the pamphlet he says that he's going to make a movie about intolerance or...
Yeah. It's literally Birth of a Nation is credited as the biggest influence on the resurgence of the KKK in the 20th century.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a completely false story about the start of the KKK. It frames it as kind of a revenge mission because of the death of a white woman, which is not how it started. The film Intolerance was a box office failure, but critics liked it for basically all the reasons that audience members didn't. Kind of these jumping timelines and the cross-cutting and unorthodox structure. And yeah, it's considered one of the most influential movies of all time.
Let me ask you this. Let's start at the top here.
Let's start at the top.
Which version of this did you watch? Because I know there are a few.
Yeah.
The one I saw was like 2 hours and 45 minutes.
I think that sounds right. Amazon, I just rented it. I rented it on Amazon.
Wow. I'm just kidding. Also, who did the score? As in, most silent films have like 5 to 20 different soundtracks. The version I saw, which I think is considered the definitive version, is by Carl Davis.
Yes.
Is that the one you saw?
Yes.
He's an MVP, honestly.
Oh, the music is so good.
He's so good. He's like, I think one of the most prolific silent film composers.
So operatic.
And he's done a bunch of Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd movies. So whenever I see his name pop up at the front of a silent movie, I'm like, oh boy.
It's going to be good.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Yeah. He's great. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your initial thoughts about this movie?
So this was my first time seeing it.
Me too.
This movie loomed large because I used to live a few blocks from the Vista Theater in Los Angeles, which was the site of the Babylon set from this movie. And there's no beating around the bush that the Babylon set is I think the most famous movie set of all time. And its influence was seen all over Hollywood and LA. Like there was that shopping center. They just started remodeling it on Hollywood Boulevard.
Hollywood and Highland is based on,
exactly.
Babylon
it has like the
set.
Elephants and stuff. But they're in the process of removing that. They are. I think they already did it. But so I've always been fascinated by that set. That was my way into this movie. Like, what a cool set. You always see the shot or the screenshot of the
money
still.
shot. I call it the money shot.
In film textbooks and film school. It's just like, what is this movie? And so I did see this for the first time last night. I liked it. Me too. I think it's kind of like an intimidating movie to see and talk about. I think because it's nearly 3 hours long. And it's comprised of 4 different stories from 4 different time periods. And I think there's kind of the notion, at least I felt going into it, of like being intimidated. Like, is this going to be too much? And I think it is a little bit, but I liked it. I think the ambition on display is really admirable.
I literally wrote that.
Oh, did you?
I wrote it's so admirable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, see, I actually just took a sneak peek at your notes there. I love that. I love the scale. I do think that the story doesn't necessarily call for it, like this theme of intolerance. Like and I think it says a lot that my favorite segment, and probably a lot of people's favorite segment in the movie, is the modern day one.
It is. And I think he even made its own separate movie. I forget what it's called. But he kind of cut it off and like made it its own separate movie. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, because most people really liked that one.
And that's the one too. Like that's the one he had the idea for before Birth of a Nation. And then after Birth of a Nation, he was like, okay, well, I'll take that story and I'll expand it with 3 other stories. And I do think that at least 2 of the stories, I think the Christ story and I think the, what's the other one?
The French one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Get totally sidelined.
Oh, totally.
And it's really about the modern day one and the Babylon story. And I think maybe it should have just been those two. I think maybe the 4 was a little too ambitious and you don't care about those other two at all. I feel like even beyond that, like I didn't really care about the Babylon segment. Like the spectacle is cool.
Exactly.
But the only one I really cared about was the modern day one. And I think that a lot of you could kind of feel him like trying to one up, you know, like, look what I can do. And you're like, yeah, but does it serve the story? Like, not necessarily.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, I liked the movie. I think it maybe got a little too big for its own good, for its own britches. And I think that the theme is a little obvious and on the nose.
Well, yeah, it's literally written on the title card.
It is. But again, this is over 100 years old at this point. So I can't really get too saucy about it being too on the nose. So yeah, overall I liked it, and I think it lived up to its reputation. I don't think it's like one of the. I don't want to say it's not one of the all-time great films. I think it's a very, very good film, and I think that is worth seeing by anyone who's into film. Yeah. And it's an essential part of film history.
By the way, it's number 93 on the list, right?
Number 93.
So I always, when I'm thinking about my initial thoughts, I do think about initially, like the first thing you see. And I really liked that cradle. It was blue. The version I watched, like the negative was blue.
Yeah.
I really liked that it was blue. I loved that cradle and that woman. I thought it was so mysterious and interesting. I really did. I was like, what the hell am I about to watch? I love that each story had its own title card, like background.
Yes,
it was like tablets for the Jesus section, and it was there was like a fleur-de-lis for the French one. It was different, and I loved that. That was such a nice touch.
I think it was essential in helping you ground what story you're seeing.
Yes, I love a good book opening. I'm sold. Anytime I see a book opening.
Yeah.
Anyway.
A good yarn is about to be spun.
Yes, and I do love the climax. I love the way that it intercuts with all the stories in the climax. Like, that is so commendable and incredible that he pulled that off back then. Think about it. Like, that is really crazy for 1916.
It is, yeah.
But yeah, I don't like the epilogue. Do you know after they save the husband, the boy, who has a mustache, by the way, from the gallows, there's this epilogue where it gets really big and it goes off the rails, and there's these jailbirds who are trying to get out of prison. It turns into the barricade in the sky from Les Mis.
Yeah.
It literally turns into that.
It does.
And then there's kids playing with flowers, and then there's what looks like the Civil War, like a Civil War battle, and then they all stop because they see these angels in the sky.
Yes.
It's like,
I agree.
It's already such a monumental movie, and I agree with you that it didn't necessarily have to be as monumental as it was. That, going completely off the rails like that didn't do it any good.
Yeah.
The epilogue kind of bothered me, actually.
They descend from the heavens.
Yeah. The only thing I liked is that you get another shot of the Eternal Mother, and it's a close-up, like, because we never see her close-up, and I think if it just ended with that image of her close-up, that would have been great.
And if Lillian Gish, one of the most iconic silent film stars.
Yes. I think that would have been beautiful, but... Yeah. Another initial thought I had was I was thinking to myself, I was like, I wonder if this is the first depiction of the Jesus story in film, but it's not actually.
Yeah.
I found that there was an 1897 French film. 1897!
See, I didn't know that, but I figured it wasn't, just because that's like, as soon as people get the tools for like a new medium, I feel like the Christ story is like the first one that people tell.
Yeah, definitely. But it was interesting. Yeah, it's called La Passion du Christ.
Oh.
It's literally Passion
of
the Christ.
They should sue Mel Gibson.
Yeah. But here's my thing too. It's like, I agree with you, and I think the big problem for me is that I don't see the Babylon story as a story of intolerance. I see it as a power struggle.
It is.
It's
absolutely
not, and it's sold as this story of religious intolerance, but maybe if it was clearer, it would be better. Basically, the priest is like, he thinks that he's a god, and so he wants to get rid of these people who believe in another god, but it wasn't clear. It just seemed like he was jealous of this god. It's not intolerance to me. Like the St. Bartholomew Day Massacre, that is like pure religious intolerance. even like the story of the deer one, I mean, it is intolerance, but it's mostly hypocrisy more than intolerance. So yeah, it's like I didn't think it was really about intolerance that much.
Yeah.
And here's my thing. If he was trying to prove that he wasn't racist, don't you think he should have made a story about African American? He should have put a story about African Americans in this. The Civil War was literally built on intolerance, and he just completely ignores it. Like, I think that's silly.
It's very silly.
Like, intolerance in America back then, one of the biggest signs of it was literally just the racial tensions, and to not even do anything after you literally just made an extremely racist movie and wanted to make a movie to prove that you weren't a racist.
Yeah.
Like, it makes no sense.
It makes no sense. And there are so few people of color in this movie too. I only clocked a few, and they were like in
the
servant
Ethiopians,
roles.
Right?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, Griffith, he put a lot of his own money into this, and it flopped completely, and he had financial trouble for the rest of his life.
You said that it was well received critically. I heard that it was kind of mixed.
Oh, I thought that it was well received.
He did not survive the sound era.
No, he never made a film quite like this. Like, it's Birth of a Nation and this for him. It's like he
Yes.
never made anything after this that was really talked about anymore.
Although his contributions to films go beyond this, because he was one of the co-founders with like Charlie Chaplin and stuff of United Artists.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he still made movies after this. And I think in the sound era, he made like two early 30s movies, and then that was it. And he was done.
Yeah, he his last movie was in 1931, and he died in 1948.
Yeah. Well, I hope he enjoyed those 17 years of retirement.
I don't know if he did, because I think that he had a lot of financial trouble, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, he did see. He was very revered in his lifetime.
He
though.
was.
Like he
there's
wasn't
so
one of
many
those people that
awards named after him.
died
Yeah,
that got recognition later. Like he got it while he was alive.
Yeah.
Which is cool, I guess.
Definitely.
Well, let's just say so the Babylon set, first of all, that's where the Vista Theater is now.
Yes. And it was a dirt road. Santa Monica was a dirt road when they made it.
Yeah.
And they didn't have enough money to take it down when they were done, so it just sat there.
It sat there for years, I think.
That's crazy.
That's so cool.
I know,
that is kind of like
really
falling
cool.
apart.
Really, really cool.
That's like the ultimate vision of like old Hollywood. Like, oh, get this old grand set from this historical drama that's just kind of falling apart.
Yeah.
But the architecture is influenced in the Vista Theater. And I think, I could be wrong, is that why that intersection is all weird? Because you have Sunset and Hillhurst and Hollywood all kind of like coming together in this weird intersection.
Maybe.
I always felt like it was messed up because that Intolerance set was there for so long. But I could be totally wrong.
Maybe.
But the walls were 300 feet high, and they had over 3,000 extras for some of those
crazy.
shots.
Yeah, and apparently the like the elephants are really out of place. Like there were no elephants in.
That looks cool.
But he like insisted, which was really funny. I just like.
I know that a third of the budget went into the Babylon stuff.
Easy. And I like how it wasn't just that one money shot. Like there's a few.
He uses it. Yeah.
But I mean, just think about seeing that battle in 1916. That battle was wild.
Yeah, it is pretty
crazy.
wild. There are shots, they have those towers that are advancing.
Yeah.
There are some shots where those towers fall and there are people on them.
Yeah.
And it falls, and you're like, I'm sure they got hurt doing that.
So I loved there's two scenes where someone is being beheaded. Like it's so funny. I paused it to look, and it's very clearly a fake head.
Well, of course. They beheaded someone for this movie.
No, but I was dying. I loved those.
Yeah.
And then you just have like Mountain Girl having the time of her life throwing arrows. Did you notice how happy she was?
Yeah.
She's like smiling all
so
day.
Gleeful. And there's a lot of close-ups of people getting stabbed through the stomach and stuff.
Yeah. Can we talk about Mountain Girl, because she's so cool?
Yeah. Well, wait. Just to talk about the battle really quick, I can totally see echoes of that in the Lord of the Rings movies, like in the battle for Helm's Deep. Right?
I literally my note right here is Mountain Girl walked so Awan can run. Because it's so similar.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many stories about a girl like dressing up like a guy and going to battle.
Yeah.
I mean, Mulan is like an ancient story.
Yeah.
But I loved it. It reminded me so much of Lord of the Rings. Like I wrote that down while I was watching it. It was so fun.
The scale is really impressive in that scene. It's well done. It's well done. And I think, it's massive.
Yeah. So this mountain girl.
Yeah. Well, what did you think? So she's mountain girl. We have the boy and we have dearest one.
Dear one.
Dear one. First of all.
Mountain girl, easy my favorite.
Sorry to interrupt because I know you're going into something about mountain girl. But just to get these names out of the way, what's your take on this, of how they're not named?
How they're like archetypes?
Yeah. I think that's the point, is that they're archetypes.
Oh, yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah.
The deer one is a little ridiculous.
It reminds me a little bit of sunrise. It reminds me of Sunrise because there's like the woman from the city, right? And the husband and the wife. It's like
yeah, but that one, see, in this one, there's the boy and the deer one. It's like calling a woman sweetie, like the sweet one. You know what I mean?
What about the musketeer of the slums?
The
what
musketeer
about Brown
of the slums.
Eyes?
Brown Eyes. Yeah.
The other girl in the French story her name is Brown Eyes.
Yeah.
It is kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, he wanted them to not be named so that they'd be like emblematic of human types.
Mm-hmm, yeah,
is what he said.
Yeah.
I guess it works. It's kind of it falls into like that fable aspect that this movie has.
Oh, definitely.
Sort of fable like.
Definitely. And I don't even think Jesus is called Jesus. He's called like the comforter of Nazareth,
I guess you're right.
Or something. Yeah. It's really interesting. You know what else is kind of cool?
What?
But then I guess like the heavens open and there's that huge cross. You don't see the resurrection. It's just the crucifixion.
True. Yeah.
Like only the modern story has a happy ending, really.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the mountain girl.
The
only reason I want to talk about her is, first of all, she's hilarious.
Yeah.
Second of all, I really love how I love that whole sequence of the king giving her that like tablet saying you don't need to get married. You can choose if you want to get married. Like, I just thought that was so cool. It was really cool. Was.
Yeah.
And unexpected.
Because she's being auctioned off in like
she's literally
buy a bride, this Pirates of the Caribbean, like buy a bride, and take a wench.
She's mad that no one's buying her, by the way.
Yeah.
And then the king comes and gives her this tablet that says, you have a free pass. You don't have to get married. And ever since then, she's just in love with the king. And I think it's really sweet. It's really an interesting way to... He's such a likable ruler.
Yeah.
He really is.
Yeah. Well, if he throws parties like that, I mean, who wouldn't be attracted to him?
Right? I know. And I love how she kind of has a thing with the priest's helper, the Rhapsod, that's his name?
Oh, he's a raptor.
She has a thing with him, but there's a title card that comes up that says like she leads the lovesick boy on, just thinking about her king. Like she's literally thinking about another man and like making out with this guy. It's really funny.
It is funny.
It's really cool, actually.
Yeah. Her stuff in the Babylon segment is definitely the best stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Oh my God. Can I just point out my favorite line?
Yeah.
Like of possibly any movie ever. And this is a silent movie. She's at the market, the bride market, and her brother is talking to some guys and she's about to go up next. And she takes out an onion.
Oh.
She's like munching on this onion and he goes, "Tish, tish, 'tis no time to be eating onions."
Tish.
I died.
Oh,
I
my
was
God.
cracking up.
Yeah, who eats an onion like that?
Tish, tish.
Raw.
'Tis no time to be eating onions.
Let's talk about the movie's intertitles. So
yes,
beyond them being stylized for each segment, which is super cool and I think helps ground you, there's also a lot. There's like a footnote to a lot of these intertitles of like a historical footnote, like in this time, blah blah blah, so and so was looked down upon, or like. It kind of makes it overwhelming on the first viewing because there's like, shit, I'm taking up so much information right now. But it is like a nice touch of like, you feel like you're getting a fuller experience.
Yeah.
And it's just because you don't really see that. I've seen my fair share of silent films, and I feel like that's not a common thing to have these like footnotes.
Yeah, it is footnotes. That's funny.
Yeah.
Let's talk about these different storylines because I really like the freedom that he feels like he has to move around. And I feel like they're a little like Easter eggs almost. And I hate that word. So like the first time I noticed it, because it's just so free flowing. And I feel like that was really a revelation. It still is. Like it's cool now. I can only imagine how cool it was then.
Yeah.
For example, when the mill workers in the modern story are having their little dance or whatever.
I love that.
And there's a title card it comes up and it's a biblical quote that says the mill what does it say? It says, "To everything there is a season, a time to mourn and a time to dance. He hath made everything beautiful in this time. And it's
I love that.
Yeah, and it's the tablet background, but you're seeing the modern story. It's so
the
cool.
way of overlaying
I thought
those
it was
two
really
things.
cool the way that he overlaid that. And then also, like, when the dear one loses her child, and then it just cuts to Jesus with a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
Like, it's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, he really works to like make those things connect, right?
Yeah, and even
I will say too, really quickly, that the dance scene with all the mill workers, there's echoes of that in like, I mean, you can see how D.W. Griffith is the blueprint for the epic film, because you can see echoes of that in like Michael Cimino's movies. Look at Deer Hunter or Heaven's Gate or something. It was like, yep, that's where that came from. Yeah.
And then even like the Jenkins, they're the rich family that give money to these reformists. Their butlers are wearing powdered wigs. And then immediately after you see 14th century France, and it's like they're wearing the same things. It's really interesting the way that he did it. I'm not saying that it totally works. I'm just saying that it's really impressive the way that he structured it.
He makes the effort, yeah. Well,
and he was very brave to do so, I think. But yeah, again, I don't not that I think that it's so effective, and I was so, I don't know,
you know what I think it is too?
By it. It's just
I think him making those connections is also him justifying why there's 4 stories in this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, no, look, see, this relates.
Yeah.
I promise.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, okay, I guess. But still, I would have taken an hour off the movie and just having the 2 segments, the Babylon and the present day.
And then maybe make Babylon more about intolerance.
Yes. Yes. But I will say this too. I love the way the movie contrasts. You know, you do have stuff like the Babel for Babylon, which is huge. It's massive scale.
It is.
And then you have like the present day stuff, which is such a small story. It's mostly between 2 people, right? And I won't talk about this quite yet because it ties into a favorite side of mine. But I love the way that he's able to. You have these really intimate small scenes, and then you have these huge, massive scenes.
Yeah, like for example, the climax. I mean, you have that battle, you have Mountain Girl dying basically, and then they're driving in a car going really fast to try and stop this hanging that's about to happen.
Yeah, that's
great.
It's full of tension. Yeah.
Oh my God, I was so scared when he. Okay, so the dear one has found the governor, I think he is, and has proved to him that her husband didn't kill the musketeer of the slums, and so they're racing to stop his hanging essentially, and they call on the phone and they say stop the hanging, and then the hangman like takes off his hood, says pause for a second, and then changes his mind. It's like, no, we're actually gonna do it. Puts the hood back on.
Dick.
How scary was that?
That guy's a power trip son of a bitch.
I was on the edge of my seat. I really, really was.
Yeah.
And that's not easy for me for a movie from...
It's a little jab at the justice system, maybe, I think.
I guess, yeah.
Like, even presented with, like, no, don't
hard
do this.
evidence,
He's innocent. Like, no, fuck it. We already have him. Like, he's already has a noose around his neck. Like, we're just going to go through with it anyway.
It's like everything Dancer in the Dark.
Dancer in the Dark.
Oh my God. That you're watching that scene in Dancer in the Dark and you're like, okay, someone, somewhere, say something, do something.
Yeah.
And then it just doesn't. And this was the opposite.
This was the opposite. This is the cheer moment.
But I was getting Dancer in the Dark PTSD while I was watching this.
Totally.
What's your favorite site?
Favorite site? Okay. I wanted to say the Monsieur La France with the puppies and his like purse.
Oh my God, I loved that. I loved that.
I'm not going to say the Babylon set because I would be such a cheapo if I said that. Mine is the deer one. So it's about 45 minutes into the movie. The deer one has a geranium, this plant that she's like watering. And it's just a picture. You're laughing. You're stifling laughter right now. It's just her and her geranium. You know why I liked it so much? Because it's emblematic of like how small this movie can get. Of like literally the story of a woman and her plant.
Yeah. There's even a beautiful
You were just laughing.
That's actually really cute.
What I like, the intertitle says the hopeful geranium, which I think ultimately this movie is hopeful, and I think it was intended to be this message of hope. And again, it's just encapsulated in a very small, intimate, simple scene. That's why.
That's lovely.
In contrast to the huge Babylon shots, that's my favorite.
Okay, mine is when the boy, now that I think about it, it's kind of a fucked up scene because he's like, I always come inside with my girls. And she's like, no, you're not going to come inside. Mm-hmm. And then he says, just for that, I'm never going to see you again.
Yeah.
And then he decides like, say, what if we get married? So it's like,
this guy
are
is
you
so
marrying
horny.
her? Yeah, but it does make for a really cute kiss.
Is that kiss cute though? If he's such a dick and he's only marrying her so they can have sex?
That's what I'm saying now that I think about it.
That's your favorite sight? Yeah, it's a nice kiss when you don't factor in the fact that he's being a creep in that scene.
Yeah. Okay. Oh wait, sound. I forgot because it's a silent movie.
You go. This is tough because the only other silent film we've done is Sunrise. Mm-hmm. That movie had recorded sound.
Yes.
So that was natural to the movie.
I forgot what was my favorite sound from that movie. What was yours? I can't even remember.
Mine was all the horns of all the cars. Yours was the music.
Yes, when he goes crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't really know if Carl Davis's score for this is based off the original sheet music for this, or if it's just his own like creation. It's really beautiful. It's the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
Because with silent films, it all rests. There's no fucking sound. Mm-hmm. Like it all rests on the music, and when the music is as good as Carl Davis's score is here, it becomes like an opera.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Or like a ballet. Mm-hmm. So we're going off Carl Davis's score basically because that's the only sound you do hear in the movie.
Can I just say there is a gunshot?
Oh yeah, there are a couple, but again, that wasn't recorded on the film. It's something that he probably added in his score or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, why don't you go first?
So there was a few, but honestly, I think it's like right in the beginning. It's kind of a build up. It's like it's right as the movie is starting, and it just really builds up and like
an overture.
Suspense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, let me show you. I heard that music, and it is very much a suspense builder, a tension builder, and you see the woman and the eternal mother in her cradle.
Yeah.
And I was excited. I was like, what is this going to be?
Yeah. No, I like it. It's beautiful. His score for this is so great.
Yeah. What's yours?
I honestly, the music, the overture in the beginning is great.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a cheat because I can't leave the Babylon stuff out. I'm going to say his cue when you finally do get that Babylon money shot,
gorgeous,
is my favorite sound.
Yeah.
And again, his whole score for this is amazing. And the way that he differentiates each of the stories, gives them their own like feel musically.
Yeah.
So good. Again, so much of the credit up for this film working should go to Carl Davis.
I agree. Here it is. It's so
breathtaking.
Good. Yeah, it really is.
Oh, God.
It's like a 100-foot crane.
Jesus.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It is. Well,
we've come to a certain segment we do.
I'm actually really looking forward to this. When I don't have very strong feelings towards the movie, I'm excited to hear what Pauline says.
Yeah, I have semi-strong feelings.
I don't know. See, this is my thing, and I don't. I wish I did almost. There's certain things about it I really, really, really like.
Yeah.
like that's gorgeous. I can't look away from that. That Babylon, we just listened to the reveal of the Babylon set. I can't look away. It's so beautiful, but yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's missing something for me, and I don't quite know what it is.
Agreed. Subtlety.
Possibly.
Or just,
I also think the French story really isn't played out enough, and I think that could have been really interesting. That's the only like pure intolerance in this movie.
Yeah, and that one's given the,
like the pure like
least amount of screen time, or maybe the Christ one.
Yeah. It's both.
But see, the thing is, everyone knows the Christ story so well that like you know exactly what's happening in that. Where the French one was like a little bit, it's not given any time in the movie. Yeah. It's like, why are you including it?
Yeah.
All right. Get ready for Pauline. This is the segment where we read Pauline Kael's review of the film. So I have a couple snippets here I'm going to run together. So she reviewed this movie from 1916 in 1968. So about 51 years after it was made. Mm-hmm. Intolerance is one of the 2 or 3 most influential movies ever made, and I think it is also the greatest. It turned out to be a great, desperate, innovative, ruinous film, perhaps the classic example of what later came to be known as cinema maudit. Intolerance almost becomes a film symphony, but 4 stories intercut and rushing towards simultaneous climaxes is, at a basic level, too naive a conception to be anything more than 4 melodramas told at once. The titles of Intolerance state the theme more than the action shows it, and the 4 parallel stories were probably just too much and too bewildering for audiences. No simple framework could contain the richness of what Griffith tried to do in this movie. He tried to force his stories together and push them into ridiculous patterns to illustrate his theme. But his excitement, his madness, binds together what his arbitrarily imposed theme does not. Intolerance is like an enormous, extravagantly printed collection of fairy tales. The book is too thick to handle, too richly imaginative to take in, yet a child who loves stories will know that this is the treasure of treasures. The movie is the greatest extravaganza and the greatest folly in movie history, an epic celebration of the potentialities of the new medium, lyrical, passionate, and grandiose. No one will ever again be able to make last-minute rescues so suspenseful, so beautiful, or so absurd. In movies, a masterpiece is, of course, a folly. Intolerance is charged with visionary excitement about the power of movies to combine music, dance, narrative, drama, painting, and photography, to do alone what all the other arts together had done. And to do what they had failed to do. Griffith's dream was not only to reach the vast audience, but to express it, to make of the young movie art a true democratic art.
I really love that.
One of my favorite Pauline reviews.
Beautifully written.
Yeah, and honestly, I completely agree.
Yeah.
And she says it is this huge, overwhelming, grandiose experience, but that it also is a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
But she loves it in spite of itself.
Right.
And I don't know if I quite love it as much as Pauline loves it, but I get that sentiment, and I feel that way about other movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that way about The Sound of Music.
Yeah, but that, you see, in my head, that's just a great movie.
No, I think Pauline, I think she nailed it.
I think what Pauline said, I feel that way about Terry Gilliam's movie Brazil, which is one of my favorite movies, but it's a movie that it's overblown and ridiculous and could probably be like 20 minutes shorter, but I love it in spite of itself, and I wouldn't change anything about it.
Shall we see what the common man thinks about it?
The common man on Letterboxd. The real salt of the earth people.
Love them.
I have a 1-star review here.
Okay.
I don't need 3 hours of whatever that was to tell me that it's not okay to kill people.
1 star. Do we think Griffith was trying to make the most boring film imaginable, or is this just how it turned out? It's not boring at all.
It's not boring. I mean, come on. You got these great battles. You got love stories.
How can you call it boring?
Someone gave it 1 star and said, D.W. Griffith, you hypocrite bitch.
That's so funny. And he makes such a point in the movie to call out hypocrites. That's like a main thread tying these stories together.
He does.
It is. I know. And I think about that too. And I'm baffled a little bit.
Yeah.
This is just a little tidbit from a 2-star review. What's up with the creepy looking poster trying to make this look like an enticing horror movie about a baby snatching ghost/demon? Spoiler alert, it's a trap.
I wonder what they think of the Erich von Stroheim movie poster for Greed, which is like this witchy hand.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Somebody said 1.5 stars. I broke my New Year's resolution not to watch something that I'm probably not going to like. I didn't like it. Constantly on the nose and terminally whack. Would have been 2.5 stars, but the fact that Griffith made this as a response to his critics of Birth of a Nation to say, actually, maybe you're the racist ones, costs it a whole star off. The best I can say about it is when it gets too dull in one storyline, it quickly cuts away to a different dull storyline. Ah, yeah, I guess the Babylon set looks pretty cool too. Interesting point they put up. He did. D.W. Griffith was so salty at the critical reception to Birth of a Nation that he called critics are, in quotes, the intolerant ones.
Yes, which is what? 1 star. I blame myself for this one. My first ever silent film, and I picked one that was 3 hours? I found the title cards to be inconsistent. Some were fine, while others were 3 times as long. I think if they cut them properly, they would save me at least 25 minutes. The sets were impressive, but I didn't connect to any of the stories being shown.
You know what? I will say that if you have not seen a silent film before, this is a bad one. You want to start with like a 50-minute Buster Keaton movie or, Charlie Chaplin or something, or Harold Lloyd. Like you want to start with a comedy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Someone gave it a 1.5 stars and said, "It's over, ... I did it, ... And then someone commented, "What did I tell you?" shaking my head.
Okay, 1 star. Spent a lot of the runtime wishing I was watching on 4 times speed.
Yeah, I saw a lot of those.
Okay, last one. 2.5 stars. I cheated and only watched the first part that was for a class. The next 1.5 hours is for another day, I guess.
Yeah, it's if you're not versed in silent film, this is a bad one. Even though I think it is kind of a people-pleasing spectacle. That's what it's meant to be. And I think it is, but again, it's over 100 years old.
That's what I'm saying. Imagine going and seeing this. I would
Oh my God.
flip. I think I would just... This is the kind of movie where if I saw it and I lived in Kansas, say, I would pack my bags and get on a train and come to Hollywood. Like, it's that kind of movie.
Oh, right, for Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine seeing this in 1916. I can safely say, well, no, actually, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say this is safely the greatest film I've seen that's that old, but The Trip to the Moon was like 1903. So I won't say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is great. This is great. It's crazy too, because for me, the silent era, like I love the movies from the 20s because those movies, they were up and running.
They're little.
Like our movie we're going to do next week, Man with a Movie Camera, where they started to get really experimental and stuff. And even like Metropolis and all that fun stuff that Fritz Lang was doing and F.W. Murnau. This is still kind of, movies are in their infancy in 1916. And the fact that this does what it does so well is like really, really impressive. And again, yes, he done Birth of a Nation, even though it's a racist fucking movie. But, he knew what he was doing. And I can only imagine how overpowering this would have been sitting in a theater in 1916.
Yeah.
What's cool about this movie is I think so many people know about it too without even having seen it. I think the ghost of Intolerance kind of still haunts Hollywood.
Yeah.
I think from just that Babylon set. It's such an iconic set, and it's just.
I feel like you can't learn about or hear about Birth of a Nation without hearing about this movie, and the other way around. It's strange how interconnected they are, and they are his 2 most famous movies. But
that one's way more famous than this.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I haven't, I really genuinely don't want to ever see Birth of a Nation. It's on YouTube, actually.
I have a secret. I have not seen it all the way through. I've seen clips for class.
I've seen little clips too, but I have no...
I don't really either. I don't either.
But I'm so glad I saw this, and I'm so glad that this movie exists.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, this moved the film medium forward by so much.
Yeah.
It's just it's in every frame of this movie.
What are we watching next week?
Next week, we are doing Dziga Vertov's 1929 Man with a Movie Camera. Another silent, but this one is a third of the length of this. It is about an hour long. So
I
believe it's number 8 on the Sight and Sound list.
Yeah, because Searchers was 7.
Searchers was 7. So
see you next week, Greg.
Yeah, have a good one.
You too.
Seen and Heard is presented by the Arroyo Film Club. Produced by and starring Greg Kleinschmidt and Jacqueline Pistachian. Edited by Greg Kleinschmidt. Music by Andrew Cox. Special thanks to Kathryn Ferentchak.